The sleek obsidian hull of Commander Krafthnog's flagship, the Eternal Dominance, cast its shadow over the pathetic human vessel drifting through the Zerian Nebula. From his command throne, Krafthnog observed the crude metal contraption that these creatures dared to call a starship. Its surface was scarred, patched, and somehow still functional despite looking like it had been assembled by blind younglings with spare scrap metal. "Commander," squeaked Lieutenant Moran from his navigation console, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. "The human vessel shows no signs of retreat. They appear to be eating something." Krafhthnog's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Through the view screen he could indeed see movement inside the transparent sections of the human ship. Strange bipedal figures moved about casually, some holding what appeared to be sustenance containers, others engaged in what could only be described as recreational activities. Did they not understand the gravity of their situation? "Hail them," Krafthnog commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 1,000 conquered worlds. The communication channel crackled to life, and suddenly the bridge was filled with an incomprehensible mixture of sounds. Music? Laughter? Was someone actually singing? Krafhthnog's second-in-command, Mortin, frantically adjusted the translation matrix until the chaos resolved into understandable speech. "And then I said, 'That's not a sandwich, that's my lunch.'" Ha! Classic Earth humor right there. "Oh hey, looks like we've got company. Someone wants to chat." Krafthnog straightened his imposing 7-foot frame and activated his ceremonial war voice. "Humans of the vessel designated, what is that marking on your hull?" "Oh, that's the cafeteria. Pretty sweet name, right? We voted on it. Beat out floating dumpster by 3 votes. The commander's eye stalks twitched. In his 3 centuries of military service he had never encountered such casual disrespect in the face of overwhelming force. "Humans of the cafeteria, you have violated the sacred boundaries of Sector Zix-9. This region has been forbidden to all lesser species for over 2,000 cycles. Lesser species? Ouch. That hurts, buddy. Right here in the feelings." The voice somehow managed to sound both wounded and completely unbothered at the same time. "Also, we're not violating anything. Our maps show this as open space. International galactic waters, you know." "There are no international galactic waters," Krafthnog roared, his patience evaporating like morning mist on Kerian Prime. "I, Commander Krafthnog, of the Hegemony's 3rd Fleet, challenge your strongest warrior to single combat. When they fall, your vessel will surrender and submit to our authority." A pause, then incredibly laughter. "Oh man, that's adorable. Single combat? Like with swords and stuff? Tommy, you hearing this? This guy wants to have a medieval throwdown in space. I love it. Yeah, okay big guy, we accept. Give us 5 minutes to finish lunch, and we'll send someone down." 30 minutes later, Commander Krafthnog stood in the ceremonial combat chamber aboard his flagship, his finest dueling blade gleaming under the harsh combat lighting. The traditional pre-battle rituals had been observed, the sacred incense burned, and his ancestors properly honored. Everything was prepared for another glorious victory in the name of the Hegemony. The airlock hissed open, and Krafthnog straightened, expecting to face some hulking brute, perhaps scarred from countless battles, maybe sporting ceremonial war paint or ritual markings. Instead, what emerged was underwhelming. The human was small, maybe half his height, with short, dark hair and wearing what appeared to be casual work clothing. Most disturbing of all, she was actively consuming some sort of crunchy food from a colorful metallic package. "Amy Kowalski, nice to meet you," she announced cheerfully, extending one hand while continuing to munch with the other. "Sorry about the delay. We had to figure out who was least busy, and I lost rock, paper, scissors. Well, technically I won, but Brandon said that meant I had to come fight the angry space rhino." His words, not mine. Lieutenant Moran's whisper carried across the chamber despite his attempts at discretion. "Commander, she seems remarkably calm for someone facing ritual death combat." Krafthnog studied his opponent with growing confusion. Where was the pre-battle meditation, the ceremonial war cries, the respectful bowing? She was treating this sacred moment like some sort of casual social gathering. "Human Amy Kowalski," he began formally. Do you understand the gravity of what we are about to undertake? This is combat to the death, with the fate of your vessel hanging in the balance. Amy paused mid-crunch. Oh yeah, totally get it. Very serious stuff. Life and death, winner takes all, dramatic space politics. Got it. She held up the package. Want a chip? There's salt and vinegar. Figured I should have a snack before we get started. Low blood sugar makes me cranky. And trust me, nobody wants to deal with cranky Amy. From his position at the observation deck, Morton leaned closer to his commander's ear. Sir, with respect, something about this human's confidence is unsettling. In my experience, prey animals show more concern when facing predators. Amy overheard and laughed. Prey animals? Oh buddy, you have no idea what you're dealing with here. But hey, I appreciate the compliment. Most people just call me stubborn. Commander Krafthnog decided it was time to end this bizarre display of human casualness. With practiced precision, he drew his ceremonial blade from its ornate sheath. The weapon sang as it emerged. 3 feet of perfectly forged metal that had tasted the blood of champions from 17 different worlds. The chamber's lighting caught the ancient runes etched along its edge, each symbol representing a conquest of the Hegemony. Behold, the sorrow of stars, Krafthnog announced, raising the blade above his head in the traditional intimidation pose. This weapon has ended the lives of the greatest warriors in known space. It has silenced the war cries of the Bruthan berserkers, carved through the armor of the iron monks of Tertius, and drunk deep from the hearts of the void dancers. Amy finished her chips, crumpled up the empty package, and tossed it toward a waste receptacle. It bounced off the rim and fell to the floor. Oops, 2 points? No? Tough crowd. She looked at the impressive blade with the same level of interest one might show a mildly interesting houseplant. Then, without any ceremony whatsoever, she pulled up the sleeve of her work shirt and pointed to a small tattoo on her forearm. It was a simple blue and green circle, with some continental shapes visible. This is enough, she said, matter-of-factly. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of the life support systems. Krafthnog stared at the tiny marking, his mandibles working soundlessly as he tried to process what he was seeing. A tattoo? A simple decorative tattoo was her weapon of choice. From the observation gallery, the gathered alien officers began to whisper among themselves in confusion. Admiral Vashi leaned forward, his sensory tendrils quivering with uncertainty. Is that some sort of advanced technology we're unfamiliar with? Meanwhile, through the communication channel, still open to the human ship, other voices could be heard placing wagers on the outcome. I've got 20 credits on Amy finishing this in under 5 minutes. Came a cheerful voice that Krafthnog assumed belonged to the Brandon mentioned earlier. You're on, Torres, replied another voice, presumably Commander Tom Malley. But I'm betting she doesn't even break a sweat. Our Amy's got this handled easy. Earth? Krafthnog finally managed to speak, his voice cracking slightly. That marking represents your homeworld? Amy nodded, rolling her sleeve back down. Yep, planet Earth. 3rd rock from the sun. Home sweet home. And trust me, big guy, if you grew up there you'd understand why this is the only weapon I need. Commander Krafthnog lowered his blade slightly, his confusion deepening by the moment. This human was either completely insane or operating on a level of confidence that defied all logic. He decided to try a different approach, one that had worked with every other species he had encountered. Human Amy Kowalski, he began with renewed formality. Perhaps you do not understand our ways. Among the Hegemony, combat is sacred. It is how we prove our worth, how we determine the strongest, how we separate the wheat from the chaff, as your people might say. Honor is earned through strength, respect through victory, and survival through dominance. This is the natural order of all civilized species. Amy scratched her chin thoughtfully. Sounds a lot like high school, actually, except with more stabbing and less algebra. Though honestly, I would have preferred the stabbing some days. High school? Krafnog's translator struggled with the concept. You know, educational institution, teenage social hierarchies, cafeteria food that could double as biological warfare, standard growing up stuff. She waved dismissively. But please continue with your whole warrior culture speech. I'm genuinely curious about the honor system thing. Do you guys have like a point system, frequent fighter miles? A punch card that gets you a free sword after 10 victories? Before Krafthnog could respond, a new figure emerged from a side chamber. Judge Quintera, the Hegemony's most respected arbiter of combat law, glided forward on his hover platform. His ancient form bore the scars of countless witnessed battles, and his voice carried the weight of tradition spanning millennia. Commander Krafthnog, what is the meaning of this delay? The human shows clear disrespect for our sacred traditions. Surely this is grounds for immediate forfeiture. Amy turned to face the newcomer with interest. Oh, hey there. Love the floating chair? Very sci-fi villain chic. Are you the referee? Because I have to ask, do you guys actually keep score, or is this more of a last person standing wins situation? Judge Quintera's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a sure sign of deep confusion among his species. The human speaks in riddles. Does she mock our customs, or is this some form of pre-battle psychological warfare? Neither, Amy replied cheerfully. I'm just naturally curious about different cultures. Back on Earth, we had this thing called the Olympics. Bunch of countries would get together, compete in various sports, and whoever won got a shiny medal. Way more civilized than all this stabbing business, if you ask me. Krafhthnog's grip tightened on his weapon. You speak of competition as if it were mere entertainment. Combat is the purest expression of natural selection, the ultimate test of superiority. Oh, we had those too, Amy said with a shrug. Wars? I mean, lots and lots of wars. World War I, World War II, the Cold War, the 100 Years' War, the War of the Roses, the Napoleonic Wars, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the Spanish-American War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War. She paused, counting on her fingers. And those are just the big ones. We had smaller conflicts pretty much constantly. Tuesdays were particularly bloody, for some reason. The chamber fell silent. Even the hum of the life support systems seemed muted by the weight of Amy's casual recitation of human warfare. Judge Quintera's hover platform bobbed uncertainly. Did she just list more military conflicts than most species engage in during their entire evolutionary history? As a Tuesday occurrence, Morton whispered, his voice barely audible. Amy noticed their stunned expressions and quickly waved her hands. Oh, but don't worry, we're totally peaceful now. Well, mostly. I mean, we still have arguments, but these days we usually just argue about sports teams and who makes the best pizza. Much more civilized. Admiral Vashi, who had been observing from the gallery, activated his recording device and leaned forward intently. As the Hegemony's chief military strategist, he found himself fascinated and horrified in equal measure. Human Amy, when you say World War, exactly how many of your people were involved in these conflicts? Amy looked up thoughtfully, as if trying to remember what she had for breakfast. Oh, you know, pretty much everybody. The first big one had about 70 million soldiers. The second one was bigger, probably around 100 million in uniform, plus all the civilians who got caught up in it. Standard Tuesday stuff. Admiral Drawhorn, sitting beside Vashi, began frantically scribbling notes on his tactical pad. His four hands moved in a blur as he tried to process the numbers. 100 million warriors? That's larger than most of our planetary populations. Warriors? Amy laughed. Oh no, those were just the soldiers. We had farmers, factory workers, teachers, accountants, shopkeepers, basically everyone. During the really big wars, we would draft people, you know, congratulations, citizen, you're now in the military. It was like the worst possible surprise party. Krafhthnog's mandibles clicked nervously. Your species conscripts non-combatants into warfare. Had to, Amy explained with a casual shrug. Wars were getting too big for just the professional soldiers. Plus, humans are surprisingly adaptable. Give us a few weeks of training, some basic equipment, and we can pretty much fight anywhere. Jungles, deserts, frozen tundra, cities, underwater, in the air, underground, you name it. Lieutenant Moran's voice cracked as he spoke. Underwater combat? Oh yeah, submarine warfare was huge for a while. We built these metal tubes, stuffed them full of people and weapons, and sent them to the bottom of the ocean to shoot at each other. Pretty standard naval strategy. Though honestly, the surface ships were scarier. Some of those things were floating cities with enough firepower to level mountains. Judge Quintora's hover platform had begun to wobble erratically. Mountains? You developed weapons capable of destroying geographical features? Amy's expression grew momentarily serious. Well, yeah, but that was mostly the nuclear weapons. We figured out how to split atoms and thought, hey, let's turn this into a bomb. Probably not our best decision, in hindsight. But hey, live and learn, right? The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Admiral Vashi's recording device slipped from his suddenly nerveless fingers and clattered to the floor. Nuclear weapons? Krafthnog whispered. Atomic bombs, hydrogen bombs, thermonuclear devices, neutron bombs, the works. Amy confirmed cheerfully. We even tested them on our own planet. Set off over 2,000 nuclear explosions, just to see what would happen. Turns out really big mushroom clouds and lots of radiation. Who could have predicted that? Morton had gone completely pale, his skin shifting to the sickly green color that indicated extreme stress among his species. They deliberately contaminated their own world. For research purposes. Science, Amy said with mock enthusiasm, throwing her hands up. Actually, mostly it was countries trying to scare each other. Look how big a boom we can make. It was like the most dangerous game of show and tell in history. We came pretty close to accidentally ending civilization a few times. Good times. Admiral Drawhorn's note-taking had devolved into frantic scribbling that looked more like the work of someone having a nervous breakdown. How did your species survive this level of self-destructive behavior? Amy considered this question with the seriousness of someone trying to remember where they left their car keys. Honestly, mostly luck and stubbornness. Humans are really hard to kill off completely. We're like cockroaches, but with better fashion sense and a disturbing tendency to argue about everything. Commander Krafthnog realized his ceremonial blade was trembling in his grip. Whether from fear or exhaustion, he couldn't tell. But that's just the warfare, Amy continued, apparently oblivious to the mounting horror around her. I haven't even mentioned the fun stuff yet. Like natural disasters. Earth keeps trying to kill us on a regular basis, and we just keep rebuilding and coming back for more. She rolled up her sleeve again and pointed to her Earth tattoo with obvious pride. See, this little blue marble? It's basically a death trap spinning through space. We've got earthquakes that can level entire cities, volcanoes that can block out the sun for months, hurricanes that can destroy coastlines, tornadoes that pick up houses and throw them around like toys, tsunamis that wash away entire countries, droughts that last for decades, floods that turn continents into lakes, ice ages that freeze everything solid, and meteor impacts that cause mass extinctions. Judge Quintora's hover platform had begun making concerning mechanical noises as his trembling hands struggled with the controls. Your planet actively attempts to eliminate its inhabitants. Oh yeah, all the time, Amy said with a grin. But here's the thing. That's exactly why this tattoo is the only weapon I need. Every human who makes it to adulthood has survived 18 years of Earth trying to murder them in creative ways. We don't just adapt to hostile environments. We thrive in them. We seek them out for fun. Admiral Vashi had given up on taking notes and was simply staring in fascinated terror. You seek out dangerous environments for entertainment? Absolutely. We call it extreme sports. Humans will literally throw themselves off cliffs with nothing but a parachute, surf waves the size of buildings, climb mountains where the air is too thin to breathe, swim with predators that can bite them in half, race vehicles at speeds that turn accidents into explosions, and dive to ocean depths that would crush most creatures instantly. Amy's eyes lit up with enthusiasm, and that's just the stuff we do on weekends. Krafnog's weapon had stopped trembling. Instead, it hung loosely in his grip as he processed what he was hearing. You're saying that humans voluntarily expose themselves to lethal danger for recreational purposes? Well, yeah, we get bored easily. Amy shrugged. Plus, when your entire species has been shaped by millions of years of surviving ice ages, predators, plagues, famines, wars, and natural disasters, you develop a pretty high tolerance for risk. What you call overwhelming odds, we call Tuesday afternoon. The realization hit Krafthnog like a physical blow. He wasn't facing a warrior trained in the arts of combat. He wasn't even facing a soldier hardened by battle. He was facing something far more terrifying, a survivor of Earth. Every human was essentially a walking testament to the most brutal selection pressure imaginable. Your species, he began slowly, his voice barely above a whisper, has been forged in the fires of constant adversity for its entire evolutionary history. Amy nodded approvingly. Now you're getting it. We're not warriors because we choose to be. We're survivors because we have to be. Every human carries the genetic memory of ancestors who looked at impossible odds and said, "Hold my drink and watch this." General Krafthnog, no longer thinking of himself as a commander but simply as a very small being in a very large and suddenly terrifying universe, began to understand why Amy seemed so unconcerned about their ritual combat. From her perspective, facing a single opponent with a blade was probably less dangerous than her morning commute back on Earth. "So when I show you this tattoo," Amy continued, tapping her Earth marking again, "I'm not showing you where I come from. I'm showing you my credentials. I'm a graduate of the most advanced survival course in known space. I've been trained by a planet that has been trying to kill my species for millions of years, and we're still here, still arguing about pizza toppings and making bad movies." The chamber fell into absolute silence as the full weight of her words settled over the assembled aliens like a suffocating blanket of existential dread. Amy noticed the uncomfortable silence and decided to fill it with what she considered helpful context. "Now don't get me wrong, Earth isn't that bad. I mean, sure, it's a bit challenging, but we've learned to work with it. Take Australia, for example." Admiral Vashi made a sound that might have been a whimper. "Australia? Oh yeah, that's one of our continents. Pretty much everything there is designed to kill you. We've got spiders the size of dinner plates, snakes that can drop you in 30 seconds, jellyfish that are basically floating death, crocodiles that haven't evolved in millions of years, because they're already perfect killing machines, sharks that can smell blood from miles away, and octopi that are so venomous they don't even have antidotes." Lieutenant Moran had begun hyperventilating, his breathing apparatus working overtime. "And humans live there voluntarily. About 25 million of them," Amy said cheerfully. "They even have barbecues on the beach right next to the deadly jellyfish waters. Australians are particularly stubborn, even by human standards. Their national motto might as well be, 'Yeah, nah, she'll be right, mate.'" Judge Quintara's hover platform had developed a noticeable list to one side. They'd build recreational facilities adjacent to lethal maritime predators. Well, sure. I mean, what's the point of living if you can't enjoy a nice day at the beach? Plus, shark attacks are actually pretty rare. You're statistically more likely to be struck by lightning, bitten by a snake, or hit by a falling coconut. Though to be fair, we also live in places where all of those things happen regularly too. Krafnog's ceremonial blade clattered to the floor as his nerveless fingers finally gave up trying to hold it. His entire worldview, carefully constructed over centuries of conquest and dominance, was crumbling like a sandcastle in a tsunami. "Falling coconuts," he whispered. "Gravity's a real pain sometimes," Amy acknowledged. "But hey, that's why we invented helmets. Problem solving is kind of our thing. If Earth throws a natural disaster at us, we engineer our way around it. Earthquakes, better building codes, hurricanes, storm shelters and early warning systems. Volcanic eruptions, we just move to a safe distance and take pictures. Humans are really good at the whole adapt and overcome thing." From his position in the back of the chamber, Quartermaster A had quietly activated his personal communication device and begun running calculations on his tactical computer. Fuel requirements for emergency retreat, minimum safe distance from human vessels, recommended protocols for future encounters with Earth species. The numbers were not encouraging. "Commander," he whispered urgently to Krafthnog, "perhaps we should consider alternative diplomatic approaches. Strategic withdrawal might be advisable under these circumstances." But Krafthnog was no longer listening. His proud military bearing had collapsed entirely. He sat heavily on the ceremonial combat platform, staring at nothing, muttering something about falling coconuts and Tuesday afternoon survival training. Amy looked around at the assembled aliens with growing concern. "Hey, are you guys okay? You all look a little pale." "Well, paler than usual. Different species, different color palettes. I get it." Commander Krafthnog slowly raised his head, his eyes focusing on Amy with the hollow stare of someone who had gazed into the abyss and found it casually snacking on chips. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute defeat. He began, then stopped, swallowed hard and tried again. "I, Commander Krafthnog of the Hegemony's Third Fleet, formally surrender this combat before it begins." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs from the observation gallery. In 3,000 years of recorded Hegemony history, no commander had ever surrendered a ritual combat without at least attempting to fight. Amy blinked in surprise. "Oh, okay, that was easier than expected. Are you sure? I mean, you brought this really fancy sword and everything. Seems like a waste not to at least wave it around a little." "Your species is too terrifying to engage in combat," Krafthnog declared, his voice growing stronger as he embraced his decision. "Any race that considers volcanic eruptions and predatory wildlife to be recreational challenges is clearly beyond our ability to defeat through conventional warfare." "Terrifying?" Amy laughed. "Nah, we're just stubborn. Really, really stubborn. Like annoyingly stubborn. You should see us trying to assemble furniture from those instruction manuals. We'll spend 6 hours arguing about which way the screws go rather than admit we need help." Judge Quintara's hover platform had given up entirely and was now resting on the floor at an awkward angle. The human considers furniture assembly to be comparable to surviving natural disasters. "Well, they're both exercises in patience and problem-solving," Amy said reasonably. "Though the furniture usually involves more swearing and fewer evacuation procedures. Usually." Admiral Vashi had recovered enough to attempt diplomacy. "Human Amy, perhaps we could interest your species in some form of non-aggression pact. We would be willing to offer very generous terms." Amy perked up with interest. "Oh, that sounds nice. Actually, I brought some brochures from Earth's Tourism Bureau if you're interested. We've got some great vacation packages. Ever been whitewater rafting? It's like regular rafting but with more chances of drowning. Very exciting." The horror that spread across the aliens' faces at the mention of voluntary exposure to drowning risks was immediate and unanimous. Quartermaster A's emergency retreat calculations suddenly became much more urgent. That's very generous," Admiral Drawhorn managed weakly, "but perhaps we should maintain a respectful distance between our species, for cultural reasons." "Your loss," Amy shrugged. "Earth's got some amazing sights. The Grand Canyon is basically a giant hole in the ground that we threw bridges across just because we could. Niagara Falls is a massive waterfall that we stuck a bunch of tourists next to. Mount Everest is a mountain so tall it can kill you, so naturally we turned climbing it into a hobby. We've even got these things called roller coasters, which are basically transportation designed to simulate near-death experiences for fun." The aliens were backing toward the exits now, their retreat barely maintaining the pretense of dignity. We'll just be going now," Krafthnog announced, abandoning all military protocol in favor of simple survival instinct. "Please inform your people that this sector is now officially designated as human territory. We won't be returning." 2 hours later, Amy walked back through the airlock of the cafeteria to find the entire crew gathered in the main lounge, cheering and passing around bottles of something that definitely wasn't regulation space rations. "Amy," Commander Tom Marley called out, raising his drink in salute. "Our conquering hero returns. How'd it go with the angry space rhino?" "Pretty good," Amy replied, collapsing into her favorite chair. "Turns out they're not really into the whole fighting thing once you explain basic Earth geography to them. They seemed particularly upset about the Australian wildlife situation." Brandon Torres laughed, nearly spitting out his drink. "You told them about Australia? Oh man, no wonder they ran. I bet you didn't even get to the drop bears." "Drop bears aren't real, Brandon," Amy said with exaggerated patience. "We've been over this. That's exactly what a drop bear would want you to think, Brandon replied solemnly. From the ship's communication station, their communications officer started receiving incoming messages. Lots of incoming messages. The message indicator was blinking so rapidly, it looked like a strobe light at a very boring nightclub. Guys, the comm officer called out. We're getting hails from about 40 different alien species. They all want to know about something called the Earth Tattoo Incident. Also, there's apparently a bounty of 10 million credits on any information about human military capabilities, and someone started a betting pool on whether we're planning to invade the Hegemony. Amy groaned and buried her face in her hands. I just pointed to my tattoo and told them about home. How did that turn into a military incident? Well, Tom Murley said thoughtfully, you did accidentally convince one of the galaxy's most feared military commanders that humans are too dangerous to fight. That's got to be worth something on a resume. The ship's main screen flickered to life, showing the Galactic News Network. The headline read, Breaking. Hegemony Third Fleet retreats from human contact. After Earth tattoo display proves too terrifying for combat. Oh, come on, Amy muttered. It's just a planet. Everyone acts like surviving on Earth is some kind of big deal. Brandon grinned. Amy, you just accidentally became the most feared human in known space by talking about weekend activities and vacation spots. Great, Amy sighed. Next you're going to tell me they want me to be some kind of ambassador or something ridiculous like that. The communication console chimed with an incoming priority message. Tom Malley read it aloud. Formal request from the Galactic Council for Human Ambassador Amy Kowalski to address the Assembly regarding Earth's cultural practices and defensive capabilities. Amy looked around at her grinning crewmates, then at the formal invitation, then back at her friends. You know what? I'm going to tell them about rush hour traffic, and tax season, and customer service call centers. The crew of the cafeteria burst into renewed laughter as they continued their journey through space, completely unaware that Amy's casual conversation had just fundamentally altered humanity's standing in galactic politics. Behind them, the Hegemony's Third Fleet